With government officials expressing confidence in meeting the 25,000 refugee goal by the end of February, immigration officials and social agencies are working to ensure the transition into Canadian society is as seamless as possible. To further the discussion, the University of Alberta will host a public roundtable Wednesday with panelists from government, academia, community, and society on managing the reception and integration of refugees here in Alberta. What challenges are already being encountered in this province, and what role do all Albertans play in the settlement of Syrian refugees? And joining us now is Riza Hasmath, a political science professor at the University of Alberta. Riza, good to meet you. Welcome to Alberta Primetime.
Well, thank you for having me.
Obviously, Canada is a melting pot of cultures, and refugees have been arriving here for decades. So what makes the Syrian refugee crisis different?
I think it's more visible, and it's within the context of, shall we say, terrorist activities that occurred in France. So you see there's more media attention on this.
All right. Tell us about the round table now. Why bring together this particular collection of voices? And it's very diverse, too.
Well, it is a diverse group of people, from academics to practitioners to NGO workers. I think the reason behind the sort of round table is to bring the various actors who are involved in integrating refugees into our society.
What will they discuss? What do you expect to be on the table?
Well, of course, we're going to talk about the policy options that's available, but the on-the-ground sort of realities that refugees face when they do come to Canada initially.
Now, this is a discussion that's open to the public. It's actually more geared toward the public, is it not?
I mean, it's partially public conscious raising. We need to, let the public know what's actually happening on the ground for refugees coming into Canada. So it's not only the Syrian population, but for all refugees coming to Canada.
Now, why is it important to have this conversation now? The refugees have already been arriving for a number of weeks, months even, in some cases. Why talk about it at this juncture?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I would go back even further. Refugees have been coming to Canada since the dawn of our country.
For sure.
What gives us attention to it now, as I said, is the sort of media, sort of acute awareness of this. And I think it's worthwhile reminding the public about, their realities, the sort of struggles they face, the sort of challenges they face, the sort of strengths that they have.
When you say media awareness or media recognition of this, are you talking the positives or are you talking the negatives?
Both. I mean, I guess the attention to the fact that there are refugees coming to Canada and they do face struggles, I think that's a positive to understand the realities. It generates that trust that's required for them to actually succeed in the long term, trust between the general population and trust with them and to us, that is.
Well, let's maybe talk about that. How good of a job are we doing in managing the integration of Syrian refugees right here in Alberta?
Well, again, it's all relatively speaking. I mean, in the Canadian context, in the Albertan context, I think in world terms we're doing a great job. But of course, within our own terms, we can always do a better job. When we look at the economic sort of experiences that they have, the sort of economic integration, there are a lot of challenges that they face. It's a lot of challenges matching their education and skills to a particular job, and often they're taking jobs that they're overqualified to do. And what's really interesting is the second generation, their children, where are they going and what sort of destinations do they have in the labor market? And I mean, this roundtable is going to talk about those challenges.
What kind of hurdles do we have to overcome to get to that point, though, where we're having that conversation at the same level?
Well, the hurdles is just acknowledging that it's not only your education and skills alone that gets you that job. It's the ability to fit into the working culture, the ability to fit in within society, to understand Canadian norms and values. And so that's what the first generation faces. The second generation are actually more higher educated than the general population, but yet they have lower wages than the general population. And so they're facing other issues like the capacity to obtain high-level, high-status jobs.
The policy discussions obviously essential to the settlement of Syrian refugees, but from the general population as a whole, what role do we as Albertans need to play
I think, I mean, a lot of this is understanding the realities that the typical refugee face. I think we have a lot of stereotypes. I think we have a lack of understanding about their meaningful experiences. And I mean, something like this sort of a venue allows us to at least gain a small insight into their actual experiences and the struggles that they face. And it allows us to meaningfully understand who they are.
What kind of challenges
Well,
are they actually encountering?
Well, I mentioned it beforehand. There's labor market challenges. They lack wages. They're not getting the same returns. Even more basic levels. I mean, we can get very academic and talk about this. Just integrating into our society from the everyday life experiences of integrating, that can be a challenge. And what you find is, I mean, most Canadians don't meaningfully know about this population.
So is the support just not there to help to achieve that?
Again, it's all relatively speaking. In Canada in general, the support is there to a great extent through our famed multicultural policies, through our sort of programs and actions through NGOs and civil society actors. However, with that being said, we need to have meaningful awareness of this group as a general population, because that generates the trust that's required for the second generation beyond to get that job. Remember, to get a job, it's not only your education and your skills, it's the capacity to have high networks and the capacity to fit into the working culture. And that requires trust. That requires generating meaningful trust on both ends.
So who should be facilitating that discussion? Obviously, you've pulled together quite a unique group of voices, but who needs to step forward and really...
Well, it's not one actor. There's numerous actors. So, you know, government plays a role, civil society plays a role. And of course, the refugee cohorts who come in, they need to play an active role to actually try to integrate, to try and understand Canadian norms and culture. So not only them, but their children and their children can actually understand our working culture and norms.
What do you hope actually results from getting this group together tomorrow?
Again, it's more about conscious raising awareness, and it's about getting the message out there about the actual realities that refugees face when they come to Canada.
Reza, appreciate your time this evening. Thank you kindly for bringing us up to speed on the roundtable.
Well, thank you for having me.